What's going on, guys? So obviously the market is still not looking good. So in this video, we're actually going to talk about some good news. Despite the fact that this halving is probably one of the most boring halving that I've personally participated in, I'm going to show you guys why you shouldn't be too desperate. Obviously, we kind of need a little bit of humor right now. So this was one of the most popular meme about 1 month ago. And now, you know, both the bank account and the crypto wallets are not looking really good. But hopefully in the next coming months, it should start looking a little bit better, and I'm gonna show you why. All right, so just looking at the technicals right now, we can see that, we're kind of in the no man's land right now for Bitcoin. We're close to the purple line right here, which is the second standard deviation. We could still technically, go a little bit lower again and touch it and then have a nice bounce. My target on the short term is still that green line right here, which is the reversal of the means. Obviously, just looking at the price action, the fact that we were not able to reclaim this green line right here when we have this nice pump is obviously a sign of weakness. So now we need to ask ourselves, why is the market so weak? The reason why is kind of the clouds of the macro environment. That's kind of the big problem right now for Bitcoin. But there's actually some good news that is starting to show up in the data. So if we look at the economic calendar of last week, we're finally starting to see the impact of high interest rates in the economy, and in one of the most important data that the central banks are actually looking and using to see if they should bring back rates, which is the initial jobless claim, which, as you guys can see, is way higher than what was forecasted. So at the end of the day, never forget that the markets are a reverse perverted reality of the real economy. So when the real economy is not doing good, that tends to be bullish for the actual financial markets. So this is obviously something that the Fed and the central banks are all looking at. So basically, the initial jobless claim would be a very good reason for the central banks to lower rates, which would end up being very bullish for risk assets like Bitcoin. So for next week, the economic calendar is going to be very important because we're going to have the inflation reports of last month. So shout out to breakpointtrading.net. It's completely free. Shout out to him. I love his stuff. I read it every week. And in his newsletter, he talked about inflation and the CPI report of next week. According to commodity data that he tracks, which I've been very fond of, so shout out to him. He's been very accurate with CPI reports for the past months. And as you guys can see right now, commodities went down. So according to this data, we should probably see a better inflation number than expected by the market, which then would be very bullish for the stock market, therefore bullish for risk assets like Bitcoin. So if we do a recap, we basically are starting to see some cracks in the labor market, which is good to lower rates. And we're also about to start seeing inflation hopefully coming back down. So both of those would actually be very, very bullish for the entire market on the short to medium term, which would then be bullish, in my humble opinion, for the price of Bitcoin and the entire crypto markets. Another very bullish catalyst that we have in the market is the seasonality data, the past performance of the markets during election year. And as you guys can see, historically speaking, May tends to be up. But then in the middle of this month that we're currently in, it tends to be a little bit weak. So basically sideways chop, which tends to be a buying opportunity to deploy some capital to then finish a very strong month into June and July, which are also seasonally very bullish times in the markets. So right now, in my humble opinion, we're just going through digestions in the market, which is very normal. It's very healthy. And before good times, you always have bad times. So right now, obviously, it's not looking good for crypto. But in my humble opinion, it's kind of that calm before we party again. Hopefully, I end up being right. And bigger picture, looking at the seasonality of election year, we can see that we are right here right now. So this is completely normal, the weakness we're going through right now, until the second half of May and the first half of June. That's when we should start really picking back up into the year end. Then, obviously, the big elephant in the room is, are we gonna have a recession? In my humble opinion, if we do get a recession, it's probably gonna be in 2025. It won't be a big one. It's gonna be kind of like what happened during COVID, right? Sharp, quick, and then a very nice recovery. Obviously, that's another topic of conversation, and I actually do have a video coming up about that to show you guys why I still think a recession is possible, but it's also not a big deal in my humble opinion. But for now, for the year end, I'm expecting basically an uptrend with, some nice dip buying opportunities. So now that I'm done with the good news, obviously there is some bad news. Obviously the price action of Bitcoin is going down for almost 2 months now. So now obviously, right, a lot of people are starting to talk about the momentum on the weekly time frame, which has now officially crossed bearish to the downside. This is probably the worst news for Bitcoin right now. So it's more on the technical side, it's less on the fundamental side or on the liquidity side of the markets. But at the end of the day, you can't just use one indicator on only one time frame to make a trading decision, right? So obviously in the markets, you always need to use multiple points of data to then take a trade. For me personally, this is not enough to scare me. In my humble opinion, I do think it's going to reverse very quickly once the macro landscape starts looking more bullish. And bigger picture, when it comes to price prediction, Bitcoin is forming the spirit of a Elliott wave pattern. So right now you should still have that 4 to 5 leg right here that is missing once the momentum shift to the upside, even though obviously the market is not looking that strong. In bigger picture, using the Mayer bands, you guys can see that usually we always touch these. All right, so obviously, are we going to go into red zone? I don't think so. Is it a possibility? Sure, but I think it's going to be pretty hard for Bitcoin to go to those levels. But historically speaking, guys, Bitcoin should minimum go here in this level right here. Is it going to stay there for a very long time? Probably not, but $130,000 US for Bitcoin is, in my humble opinion, very possible. High probability that could be the top as well for this cycle. This is also why I'm not too concerned about the weakness that we're seeing on the short to medium term, bigger picture. For me personally, the thesis is intact, and hopefully it ends up playing like this. 130,000 on Bitcoin would already be crazy. So hopefully the crypto cycle is not over. And so yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So just wanted to make a quick update. So appreciate all the views. Hopefully you guys get to learn and kind of see what I'm looking at, and feel free to comment down below what you guys are looking at and if you disagree with me. All right, so take care, have a good one, and stay blessed.